so heartening and I would say encouraging since morning to hear about technology adoption and digitization, right, in the cooperative banks. 5 years back, right, the word cloud would have had a different connotation, right, with the banks or the banking fraternity. It's so encouraging to hear that, especially from Dr. Ramashastri, we have been hearing RBI, right, with the induction of shared services models of computing. And therefore, I wouldn't like to use the word cloud, a pretty broad-based word, and therefore it at times gets abused, right, or misused. Necessarily what I want to talk to you, in the next 10 minutes is to talk about a form of rendering banking services which would be on an infrastructure that you need not own, you need not invest on, but use it just like any of your other utility services. You grow the IT as you grow, right? You use it on a model where you need not invest on your own hardware, on your own space, on possibly some of the people that you would like to use. Allow this to be run from a different place on a completely secured manner, on a way which is dedicated to you, and yet is running from a completely separate environment. What we are trying to establish through this is to give you a shared services model of banking, a completely different perspective. This is in line with what IDC has been talking about, the third platform. 10 years back, possibly or 15 years back, when the first phase of core banking happened in this country, right, with the likes of the public sector banks, SBIs or Bank of Baroda's or Bank of India's. The times have changed. Third levels of refreshers have happened. And as we move forward, as banking has become more matured, as technology has improved, we are seeing this propensity among the banks to really move out of the traditional models of banking. What had been the traditional models of banking? Have more CPUs, have more hardware, have more space, have more power, have more cooling, more people, more licenses. Current banking and the way to address your system for you to grow, and IT grows with you, is to give you a model which would be more elastic in nature, more on-demand in nature, and therefore needs to be operated by specialists who can run it on a separate model. And what is that model? We call it, instead of saying it's a cloud model, I would rather like to put it as a community banking, right? A community cooperative banking for you. And I'll tell you the reasons why I'm talking with this confidence, why this country is on the cusp of something different, to look at banking and banking operations from a completely different perspective. And let me also make you this point that howsoever we speak, technology is not banking. Technology is just the enabler for your banking. You need to run your services, right? Seamless, transparent, with almost 100% uptime. And how do you do that? This is a very simplified model of the way we are offering core banking services. Why I talk with this confidence? Because we have been a leading player in this particular space. In Bombay, if you see into this small architecture, right, without making it too complex for all of us to understand, especially to the bankers that you are here, you would essentially see that you need to have at least one primary location from where you can run this computing, right? And then you need a second location because business continuity becomes so very important. The moment you are dependent on technology, on a centralized architecture, business continuity becomes an important criteria for you. And the moment we talk about business continuity, it's just not about technology. It's about the process, the people, the escalations, how to handle a disaster, everything comes into play. If a disaster happens, how to go back to your data center, the primary center. So, and then therefore the story, as it is, we tend to use it very commonly, is to use this secondary site or this disaster recovery site from possibly a separate seismic region, right? Why? Because in the event of a failure, you are still completely available. Okay? The moment you do that, you need to have a completely suite of managed services that you need to run with, right? Because this entire infrastructure needs to be managed, needs to be monitored, right? Give it to the specialists. What I'm trying to tell you here is that this compute that I'm giving you is going to run from my data center on a very secured model, right? And I'm giving it to you on a shared services model. Essentially, it's a pay-per-use or an OpEx model that we would like to put it. You need not invest. You use it over a period of 5 years, right? And use this compute on an on-demand basis. As and when you want to, you can scale up, you can scale down. It's very elastic in nature. And it's something which we have been offering. Then comes the question of your secondary location, right? A secondary location is necessarily more from a compliance perspective and also from your branding perspective, because in the event of a failure in the disaster in the primary center, what are you going to do? What are you going to live with? So you need to have a completely 100% replica of your primary center? The answer is no. Service providers like us can offer you on a completely different model. You need not invest on your 100% of your capex, 100% of the infrastructure, because disasters can only happen once, twice, thrice in a year. Ideally, it should not happen. So why invest on a complete infrastructure which is lying there idle for you? You rather use it on a per day basis, on a per month basis, and therefore the cost comes down, which is something so very important for you. You need to have an optimized banking infrastructure and use and bring down the cost, right? You need to spend more on innovation, lesser on business as usual. Now, the other important aspect, besides the fact that you are running it on a community model, right, is something which I call doorstep banking. Now, what is doorstep banking? As Mr. Verghese said earlier, right, he was talking about delivery of the content at the end, and we are creating the content for you, right? But this country, for all its goods and bads, I think we actually have a complete, a boundary between what I call the digital haves and the digital have-nots. We are still poor on connectivity. And that's why you need players and service providers who can provide you connectivity right up to the last mile through multiple forms of channel, but you still need to have an optimized delivery of the services. And that is where doorstep banking can become important for you. Whether the bank goes to the house or the person comes to the bank, that's more important. As we talk about the way our government is promoting on banking for everybody, there has to be a model of providing doorstep banking. And how that can happen? Once you have the content in your data center, it needs to be transported on an optimized, secured manner. And therefore, that's where tab banking comes into play, right? Who's going to manage this entire show? The tabs, the mobiles, the branches, right? The data center, the DR, right? It seems to be a big, that's again a shared services model of service delivery needs to be taken care of instead of you running it on a dedicated model, okay? So essentially what I wanted to tell you, through this is that you need to have a Make in India story who will be able to help you deliver banking services till the last mile, ensure that you are running with almost a near 100% uptime, right? Having all the blocks, all the building blocks that are required to run the banking operations, be it your compute, be it your storage, be it the disaster recovery. But at the end of the day, it has to be a customized model. It can't be just like providing the entire set of hardware to you and you continue to run with it on possibly a 50% utilization, 40% utilization. That's what we have been seeing with the banks for the last 10 years, 15 years, right, on a dedicated model. Use it completely on an on-demand model, a completely elastic model. So essentially what I'm trying to tell you is that 3 things that you need to keep in mind. One is your connectivity, right? Because howsoever uptimes that we can talk about or claim about in the data centers, you need to have a robust connectivity, be it through the MPLS, be it through the internet, right? So just a few things. If you really look into it, this is where the whole the activity happens out of the 6 large data centers that we have. This is the core of our proposition that I'm trying to tell you. We have the 6 mega data centers all across the country. We run our operations out of it. We run our computing out of it. We keep our NOCs, the security management, the security operations, everything being run out of it. And this is something around the disaster recovery as a service, something which I had told you, right? But what I wanted to come to you are would be around this infrastructure management. I think we are very good in delivering projects. What happens after the projects, right? You need to have a sustainable model of getting this monitored and managed. It can only happen if it is running from a remote location, right? With experts, not people dependent, but process dependent. Process dependence is so very important for running operations. I think all of you will appreciate that. That can only happen if you're having the right set of tools, right set of people running from a remote location. That's what we are doing. And therefore, ours is a Make in India story. Ours is a story which is customized to your needs. And then we are there as your next door neighbor, right here in Bombay, with our data centers all across the country, to provide you all the services that you can see here, right? And the whole confidence that we speak with is primarily because we have delivered it. We have delivered it in almost all the cooperative banks. We have our presence with our data centers, with our disaster recovery centers, and therefore the most unique part that I can talk to you, especially about this community banking, something which we have mastered at, something which we are doing today, which is there readily available for you right here in Bombay. And then these are some of our customers with whom we have been doing this end-to-end services, clearly on a pay-per-use model, on an elastic model, on an on-demand model, right? So that's all I'd like to talk to you on this, but just keep in mind that shared services model or community banking, especially for cooperative banks, is here to stay, right? Let's not talk about the traditional models of computing. That's past, that's gone. We need to leap and then take care of the third platform as IDC speaks about, the third platform which utilizes what we call CAMS. Some would say CAMS, some would say SMAC, right? Cloud, analytics, mobility, and security, right? That's all that I'd like to talk to you. Thank you.